So much. We will be recording only the first part of the webinar where we have more presentation modes, and then afterwards we will be happy to have also some opportunities for exchange amongst yourselves. But maybe briefly from myself, I'm Hannah Hanses. I work at Philea as policy manager, and I'm very happy to be here with Peter Cafferkey from Impact Europe, with whom we are both jointly coordinating this initiative for foundations interested to explore impact investing approaches in a holistic way. Maybe just briefly on the agenda before handing over to Peter also to give you a more snapshot overview of what our initiative is trying to achieve. So we are here in the welcome and introductions parts. And before handing over to the speakers, we will break you out in breakout rooms to also allow you to exchange with your peers and to understand what are some incentives that bring people to this conversation today. After this, we will hear from our colleague Gemma from the ACF about how the Association of Charitable Foundations, so the national association based in the UK, has been supporting their foundation members towards impact journey. We're also delighted to be joined by Mark from the Barrow Cadbury Trust and by Sheesh from the Tree Bear Trust, as these two people and organizations have been part of the ACF initiative. After hearing from your peers, we will again break you out in breakout groups to allow you also to reflect on what you've just heard, what resonates, what could help you also to move in this direction, what we need more of. We'll be happy to also use some online tools to harvest this so that we can further reflect on what is needed and how we also, as European infrastructure, can further offer support to the wider network. We'll come back for a group reflection on what was shared in the breakout rooms, and we will briefly touch also on the next steps and opportunities for you to stay engaged on this topic. So, Peter, please.
Thank you very much, Hannah, and lovely to see you all here. Apologies, as you can tell, my standard of slide moving on Zoom hasn't improved over the last 5 years, so apologies for any stumbles there. As Hannah's mentioned, this webinar today is an interesting, exciting opportunity to deep dive, but it also forms part of a wider program, and we thought it might be just worth sharing very briefly over the next 2 minutes how this sits and what the wider goals and aims of this program that's being brought to you jointly by Philea and Impact Europe looks to do. So the Beyond Grants, the holistic approach to philanthropy, what we're kind of looking at here, and people who've been engaged with this program will laugh to see me put more circles up on the screen, it is very much reflecting the idea that this is a moment where we can no longer, to put it into shorthand to save reading what's on the slide, ignore all the tools that are in a foundation's toolbox. That's what we're looking to do here. We're very much looking to support you guys who are having these questions around how you can have may have a greater impact if it suits you, and how you can bring all of the different tools to bear. So when we say this, we look at very much how impact investing might play a role, both in financial and non-financial resources that you can deploy. And where we look at this is we see it in 2 ways. So number one, we see the need for deep dives such as these, where we're moving into the practicalities of how you may want to mobilize your endowment assets, your programmatic assets, so maybe your grant making budget and such in new and wider ways. And thirdly, in a way of leadership. So actually both what it means to be a leader inside your own organization to bring these new tools to bear, and also as an organization that might be leading the way. I know we're all a little bit afraid of claiming leadership, but maybe have more experience in the space, how you can help others to join you on this journey. But what we really also understood is that the real power in this, we believe, comes when we think less about this as 3 separate entities and more as one holistic approach, where you can, as a foundation, bring all of your tools to bear for the greatest impact for people and planet. So that's the kind of starting thought point that we had in both organizations. And then it was really a couple of very simple thoughts that we had. So we saw out there that there was a growing interest from philanthropic organizations around impact investing and a mixed level of knowledge and experience amongst organizations. And here's the disclaimer you will get sick of, but I think it's very important. We are not saying, and we are very aware that impact investing is not suitable, possible, or desirable for all philanthropic organizations. However, What we don't want is for any that do wish to get involved in this or are curious about this to not know where to go or how to receive the support or learn from the lessons of others in order to accelerate their journey. So that's the mindset we bring to this. And practically, this program at its coming out party in 2024, it actually built on quite a lot of work that both Flair and Impact Europe had facilitated previously, working groups along the spectrum of capital with leading European foundations, and also our day-to-day work exploring how foundations can have a greater impact in the space. But in 2024, we really start to build alignment and momentum, and that involved some resources that we can share after this email being launched to give a pathway and a white paper in this space, and a number of events that were held to really come out and make the claim for why we think now's the time to explore more deeply in this space. And during 2024, we were lucky to be joined by a number of foundations who agreed with this principle, agreed with this direction of travel, and looked to support us. So you'll see all 6 of them listed along the bottom of the screen. Firstly, because we're proud to have their support, and secondly, to avoid that horrible moment in a webinar where you can only remember 5 out of 6 of the wonderful organisations that are part of the team. With their support and as part of an advisory council, this year we've started to do more gatherings and more engagement. For example, these online gatherings, of which we held one in May, and now here to deep dive into endowment. We're also looking to leverage existing events. So we hosted a gathering at the Falea Forum in lovely Lisbon a few weeks ago, which that slightly helicopter style picture shows the session. And we'll look to do the same at Impact Week in November. But actually, between these gatherings, which are really important, the other element we're looking to do is really to build and feed into case studies. So please do get in touch. Let's share case studies, insights that we can then pull out to influence other work, such as policy, and also to increase data in the space as well. We really want to also make clear that we're not looking to replicate or get in the way of work that's existing. So the example today is beautifully well timed. We're here as a signpost and a lighthouse, not want to sound too grand on our own behalf. But as a European organisation, we really want to highlight what's going well and what works across Europe and what could possibly be replicated and acts as support in that way. So very briefly, the last piece I'll just say is practically, we have an upcoming couple of physical gatherings just to make you aware of that we have to share more details. Firstly, we have an open side event in Amsterdam on the 9th of July in the afternoon, if you happen to be around or in that area within equal space. It's an informal conversation that we're happy to spread wider. And then a formal gathering, and I'm contractually obliged to do this as an Impact Europe employee, to highlight the gathering for investors for impact in Europe, which occurs every year in November. And this year we're with the theme of lighting the night. We're in Malmo, a very dynamic impact city in southern Sweden, with 2 days of programming, of which further deep dives on this program and others will take place, and we'd love to have you join us there. Tickets are available now from all good bookshops. No, from online at our website, and also please do get in touch if you have any problems at gathering it. That's a quick snapshot of where we've come to and where we are, and then I think I'll possibly hand back to Hannah to just introduce us into the breakout rooms. Or
Yeah, thank you, Peter, also for giving this overview. And indeed, looking forward to the 9th of July meeting in Amsterdam, where we will be discussing governance and what kind of governance really allows you to also go into more risky investments. So shout out if you want to be part of this conversation. So we'll be doing a sort of breakout room now. So really think about, just very briefly, who are you representing? Which foundation are you part of? What brought you here today? What motivates you about thinking about generating more impact with your endowments? And also, perhaps, where on the journey do you find yourself? Are you just thinking about this now? Are you already exploring, perhaps with a certain percentage of your endowments? Or are you one of the pioneers that has been doing this for a long time? So over to you now. Back from your breakout conversations. I hope you met some interesting new colleagues and had the chance to reconnect with a few people you already knew. Without further ado, I'll ask Artemis if we are still recording. I see we are. Very good. And then very happy to hand over to our first speaker, who will be Gemma, bringing some insights to us about the why and how the ACF has structured their initiative.
Great, thank you. I'm just moving you around on the screen as I've got a few slides to share, if that's okay, that I'll send round to everyone afterwards, just to kind of guide me through. If I share my screen, hopefully it will. Can you see those?
Perfect.
It's gone straight to the last slide, so I'm going to give you a spoiler. Not sure why that's happened. Okay, thank you. It's lovely to see you all. And I was just saying in the breakout room how nice it is to have the opportunity to speak to such an international audience as well. So I'm Gemma. I'm the head of investment practice and partnerships at ACF, the Association of Charitable Foundations. Thank you so much for having us today, and thank you to my colleagues as well, who I can see on the call, who've joined us as well. Just a quick skim, and I'll let you read this in your own time as well afterwards. But the ACF is the leading membership association for foundations and independent grant makers in the UK. We have around 450 members who range massively in size, and a couple of those are on the call with me today. So Barry Cadbury Trust, who are one of our larger members, Mark, give us a wave, and Sheesh from Treebeard, who in terms of sort of investable assets is that little bit smaller, and Gail, who some of you might have met just now from Better Society Capital, are some of our key members as well. And really, what we do is we try to support those trusts and foundations to deliver the most impact that they possibly can and to rise to the challenges of our times. So, rising to the challenges of the new opportunities of AI, the cost of living crisis we find ourselves in, the climate crisis. And we're very much focused on diversity, equality, and inclusion as well, and building a landscape where foundations can really, really thrive in their work. So I've already kind of talked you through some of these bits, but our membership represents quite a large proportion of the grant making in the UK. And our members altogether hold substantial endowments. And we really do try and encourage them through the course. I'm going to talk about a little bit in a minute, but also some of the other bits and pieces that we do through the SIG network, etc., as well, to try and encourage people to really think about their investments and the power that their investments have, not just the power of the grant making that they do as well. So I'll skip to this one. So how do we do that? One of the ways in which we promote sort of best practice is through our Stronger Foundations guide, and I'll show you what some of the aspects of that are in a moment. To give you a little bit of context, when this was put together between 2018 and 2020, we involved over 100 senior foundation representatives from across our membership. So that included organisations of varying size. We really did examine, debate, and discuss what best practice for foundations might look like, and we had external contributions to that as well. The investment working group, which we'd probably be most interested in, included Friends Provident Foundation, Access, Bell Foundation, Esme Fairburn, Joseph Roundtree, Nesta, and 30 Percy, the majority of who are still our members today and very much still helping us with our investment learning program and sharing these ideas with everyone. And again, those topics that are within Stronger Foundations is really the kind of guidance or support we want to suggest to our members that will enable them to rise to those greatest challenges that we talked about just now. So I've included this slide here because it's one that I use when I run some of my sessions to give Stronger Foundations a bit more context. So we, as a membership body, recognise that we have a very diverse and wide-ranging set of members who have different levels of resource, different levels of investable assets, different amounts of grants they make, different approaches, different social missions, different trustees, different values. They all have their own personalities as well. So for us, Stronger Foundations is a best practice guide. We're not saying that you have to do all the things within it, but we would like to offer you the opportunity to consider those things, to inspire you to think about how that might work for you and your organisation. But we do fully acknowledge and understand that our members have different starting points and will probably follow different paths as they move forward within all of that as well. So what are the pillars? And you'll get this, so you can have a look through, and I can send a link round as well, where you can actually read the papers for each of the different sections. That's all on our website. So the pillars include 40 pillars of Stronger Foundation practice that are categorised into diversity, equity and inclusion, impact and learning, strategy and governance, transparency and engagement, investment and funding practices. So within the investment area, we have ensuring that everyone understands that responsibility for investment sits with each and every member of your trustee board, that you're really trying to prioritise mission when setting investment objectives, and that's probably where impact investing in the main endowment, the course that we've developed, would most likely sit, although it does straddle across most of the areas. That you're engaging with and holding to account those managing your investments. So one of the aspects of the course is we talk about how to engage with and talk to your investment managers or advisors about impact. That you're pursuing transparency in response to scrutiny as well, so that there's some accountability. And we do a lot of work around peer learning and peer support, so that our members can learn and guide one another from one another and guide one another. Actively seeks a variety of research and views to inform its approach to investment. So obviously this will be quite proportionate to your size of your organisation and your resource, but really making sure that you are keeping abreast of what's going on, understanding trends. Definitely impact investing is something that our members are talking about more and more. And interestingly for me, members who have never thought about anything like that before are starting to think about more and more too. That organisations are reviewing their own time horizon, and finally that they're seeking to positively influence the behaviour of others in relation to their investments. So that's that additional kind of peer learning aspect that comes in as well. So I won't read all of these out, but I put them here because I thought you might want to click through the links. So on our website, we have some investment case studies from our members where they have delivered against those pillars. So those kind of really help bring it to life. We've got Barra Cadbury here today with us as well. So hopefully Mark will reflect on some of their connection with Stronger Foundations as well. But it's a really good place to have a look through and see how things might relate to your work as well. So has everyone seen the spectrum of capital diagram previously? Yeah, I've seen a few thumbs up. I'll leave this here for a second, and you've probably seen varying different iterations of the spectrum of capital. But when we're talking about SIG, the Social Impact Investors Group, and we're talking about impact investing in the main endowment, we're mostly linking that, when we talk about the spectrum of capital, to being the columns over to the right hand side, the impact driven, the impact first. And this is kind of an important reflection that we usually mention and utilise within our sessions and go into a bit more detail. But that was just to give you an overview of where things sit within those kind of recognised frameworks. So the Social Impact Investors Group, or SIG, as we call it for short, is so ACF is a membership organisation. SIG is a special interest group. It's a special interest group that meet several times a year. We run 6 to 8 learning events on different topics as defined by members. So this year we've talked about blended finance. We've got some stuff coming up around climate, net zero, the pros and cons of divesting. We're doing a session on arts, heritage and culture and social investment next month. So lots of different topics depending on what members are interested in at the time. We have a regular mailing that goes out that any of you are welcome to sign up to. Please let me know if you would like to. We also run impact investing in the main endowment that I'll talk about in a moment. We also have what we call social investment showcase events about 3 times a year. They used to be called market information days, where social enterprises and those seeking social investment come along and have the opportunity to pitch and share their ideas, with the intent that SIG members have the opportunity to learn what's out there in the market, what they might want to consider getting involved in. We've now got 55 members of SIG, which is great. We've grown a little bit, and growingly we're seeing a move from very much larger organisations being members and active in this space to organisations who are just starting to think about it, so not necessarily actually making any investments yet, but starting to think about what it could look like for them, what it could mean for them. And you can see on the screen who the members of the steering group are that guide and determine what happens there, which includes she'll be speaking in a bit. But very much we were thrilled to have organisations like Barnwood Trust join the steering group recently, who very much have the voice of place-based smaller organisations with a much more specific mission within their remit. So it's been really good to kind of see those kinds of organisations starting to engage in this area, as we don't want it to be a niche thing. We want it to be something that everyone can consider and work out how it might work for them. So sort of challenges and opportunities for SIG. I think it's great because it builds trustee knowledge, and we see the opportunity of building trustee knowledge through the staff members and trustees who are part of SIG. And I think that links in with the last point on this slide of how can I get an internal mandate for the work that I want to do, particularly when it comes to impact investing. Trustee knowledge and engagement, I think, is different to staff level. There's lots of collaboration that happens, sharing of due diligence, peer learning, sharing risks, lots of knowledge of the investment opportunities. So as I just said, our showcase events are a really great place to see what might be out there. It is a growing trend. It's only upwards. We didn't lose any SIG members as we went in through our round of renewals this year. So it just sort of shows to me this is an area of growing interest. People are asking, what is impact? How do we measure it? How do we set those impact investment targets, not just the financial ones? And that, I think, is a really big sort of how question that we get from members. What will financial returns look like? Trustees are asking, will we end up with less money if we go down this route? What are the risks of that? What are the benefits of that? And really making sure that trustees feel equipped and able to take this stuff forward is really important. And that is why, or one of the reasons that 3 years ago, the Impact Investing in the Main Endowment course was put together, and we've delivered it now 3 times, and we did it for a 4th time. We took it to Norwich yesterday, so we've taken it out on the road to support some place-based organisations in the east of England. And what it covers, well, I'll give you a bit of more background. So the course was put together by ACF, the Impact Investing Institute, Better Society Capital, and an organisation called Share Action, who host the Charities Responsible Investment Network, and very kindly funded to get together by Truebeard Trust and Barrow Cadbury, who are speaking a bit later today, as well as others, who we're super grateful for helping us, not just with funding the development of the course, but also who continue to be speakers at our events and share their knowledge and wisdom on an ongoing basis as well. But really, I think the beauty of the course is that it really does bring in lots of different sources of knowledge and information from those stakeholders. I'm not sure that any one of us could have put it together and make it work for trusts and foundations without the others as well. So for me, that I think is quite significant. Within the course, we distribute an action plan, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. We also have a glossary, which has become more and more useful. There's a lot of jargon busting that has to go on. And I think that's really significant as you start working with trustees and perhaps smaller organisations who are not quite as au fait or as directly working with their investments as maybe others. So the key steps we go through the course, we did it yesterday in 3 hours as a bite-sized version for the first time, but when we've done it in a longer context, we've done it over 3 mornings, or we've done it kind of over 2 days. But it covers the sort of 10 key steps that you can see on the screen for impact investing in the main endowment that we've summarised. So starting with really obtaining that internal mandate, convincing your trustees, getting everyone on board, and really understanding how this might work for you. Establishing those financial and impact requirements, followed by integrating investment and impact together at a board and staff level in order to deliver that strategy. Updating your investment policy, appointing the right investment managers and advisors with the expertise and knowledge and impact, and how to do that and understand that and really make that happen for yourselves as well. These are just some of the slides taken from the key sections in the course, because I thought you might want to see the stuff that we go through. So we kick off with an introduction to impact investing. What is it? What definitions are out there? How it relates to spectrum of capital that I spoke about earlier. Thinking about your journey, how you might get there. And we do quite a lot of myth busting as well around impact investing and how to understand the market. We then go into how to obtain that internal mandate. Why is this important? Why should trustees be thinking about that? What are the opportunities as well as the risks? We then think through how to bring the mission to the endowment. So establishing your financial requirements, your impact requirements. We look at different frameworks and different methodologies you might want to use in thinking about how to do that. And we have an exercise using the Sustainable Development Goals, not necessarily to say this is how you have to do it, but to kind of give people a view and understanding that just because they have a very specific social mission within their organisation, actually they could be looking more widely than that, and how their impact fits in on a much bigger level as well. We then look at how to write an impact aligned investment policy. Here in the UK, the Charity Commission does require that charitable organisations with investments do have one of these. So it is quite a significant piece of work. And we provide a checklist. We look at examples of other people's and all of those things as well. And we can signpost to organisations that can support our members with that in a bit more depth if needed. And sort of towards the end, we look at working together to deliver the strategy. So how do you integrate at that board and staff level, your current advisors, how you're working with them, how you might like to talk to them in the future, how to hold them to account, how to measure and report on the impact of your investments as well. Finally, we finish up by talking through with lots of examples of how different trusts and foundations have taken their portfolio and how it might change, what it might look like into the future. And really, it's the examples and peer learning that we throw in here. We have lots of speakers from lots of different members of different sizes and backgrounds to support that. So where are we going with all of this? We would love the opportunity to inspire more of our members, more trusts and foundations to be considering impact investment. We want to keep running the course. We have found that trustees can tend sometimes to be a barrier in really making this happen for organisations. We also know that trustees will not access a 2-day course necessarily in the same way. So for us here in the UK, trustees have the ultimate governance control of a charity, but they're not allowed to be paid or financially reimbursed for their activities. So if they're working, if they've got other things on, to volunteer and give up your time for 2 days can be quite an ask. So we're developing some bite-sized sessions that we're going to trialed yesterday with the group we saw there, and we're going to try and do some stuff online with that in the next month or so. But really, we obviously don't give any financial advice or investment advice. We make sure and encourage people that they go off and do their, gain that themselves. But really, we want to inspire people with our course and encourage them to consider some of these issues and then go away and do a bit more and talk to one another as they enter on that journey. you'll get this slide. There's lots of links there to sort of some of our upcoming events. Depending on what you are as an organisation and all sorts of things, you might want to or be able to enjoy some of them. But yeah, it was just to give you an overview of some of the bits and pieces that we've got coming up, so you can understand that there's lots of stuff going on in this space, especially for our members. And that's me done. Sorry, I've probably talked for too long, but hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview of what we've been up to.
Thank you so much, Gemma. I think this was super insightful. Happy to hand over to Mark first and then Shish, and then I think we can open up for Q&A as well after that. So don't hesitate to post some questions in the chat if you already wish so. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go quite quickly through my points, but please do either ask a question afterwards, or if you want, I'm very happy to be contacted directly afterwards if you want to follow up on something which you think about later. So I'm Mark. I work for the Barrow Bridge Trust, which is a charitable foundation with about 100 million euros in assets. And our mission states that we should use all our assets to bring about structural change for a more just and equal society. So we see our investments as fundamental, not only to produce the income, but also to contribute to our mission in themselves. And it's always a balancing act. We have to balance the financial return, the risk, and the impact our investments have, so we can ensure that the financial returns are sufficient to fund the work of the charity while avoiding negative social impacts and maximizing positive social impacts. So just how we've gone through this, we started off excluding some investments, alcohol, tobacco, arms, those sorts of things. But over the last 14 years, we've tried to use our investments to achieve positive impact through engaging with companies and regulators. And by engagement, I mean activities like filing shareholder resolutions, writing to companies, meeting with regulatory bodies, asking questions at AGM, and normally a combination of those. And obviously, we're relatively small investment-wise, so we work very closely with our investment manager and other networks. And I mentioned the Charity Responsible Investment Network, which is a key network for UK foundations interested in responsible investment. We work on various environmental, social, and governance issues, climate change, health issues, workforce issues such as pay and diversity. And we do have some positive impacts, investments with generating positive impact within our mainstream portfolio. But the main impact is through engaging with companies. And I'm just going to give a couple of examples of that. So our investment manager has a climate active fund, and we align our investments with this. And the policy is very much about engagement rather than divestment. But having said that, it's been very difficult to engage with fossil fuel companies in recent years. We divested about 6 years ago from Shell and Total, as there didn't seem to be any real movement towards alignment with the Paris Climate Agreement. We did invest in Equinor, the Norwegian oil company, in 2023, as they were making quite positive noises. But then they backtracked, and we took part in the shareholder resolution, and we ended up divesting from them last year. An example of engaging with companies is on the ethnicity pay gap, where we have met with about 15 companies last year, mainly in the food and hospitality sector. And this is trying to encourage them both to disclose their diversity statistics in a meaningful way, and also to use it to create more equitable workplaces. So looking at where people are on the management scales, on the pay scales, and trying to ensure there's better sort of internal promotion. And obviously we do this, as I said before, as part of a coalition of investors, and that's Share Action organised that coalition. Another example of where we've tried to engage is with Meta. So it's been really difficult over the last few years if you haven't been invested in some of these big tech companies to generate the right financial returns. And you always try and balance that with the negative impacts which many of them produce. And we were trying to engage with Meta, about responsible AI, about some of their, fact checking and moderation. We'd been concerned about recent court cases, For example, in Kenya, the company was accused of promoting content that incited ethnic violence and killings during the conflict in Ethiopia. And there's very little impact you can have as an investor. Mark Zuckerberg he only holds 14% or so of Meta's shares, but he controls 60%. So it's quite difficult to actually weren't really to our efforts to engage other influencers as well. So, and over the last year, we've seen them swing, Mark Zuckerberg and Meta move further to the right and behind President Trump. And that his politics are fine, whoever he wants to support politically is fine. But the actions taken, abandoning DEI programs, abandoning fact-checking and moderation, these all have a detrimental effect on social issues. So we divested earlier this year from Meta. Gemma also mentioned social investment, and we do have a separate social investment portfolio where we invest part of our funds to create a social impact rather than a financial return. We hope to create a financial return as well, but in practice, we are just about break even overall. We've currently got about 25 investments totaling about £5 million. So we've got some examples of these, some in funds run by Big Issue Invest, which is a UK organisation, and some direct investments. So we've got an equity investment in an organisation called Redemption Roasters, which is a coffee business which trains and employs ex-offenders, and Fair for You, which provides affordable loans to buy household appliances such as washing machines. So we try and do more of that, and we're constantly looking at those. So in summary, sorry, it's been very quick, but in summary, we aim to use our investments to create impact in two main ways. So both the direct impact from our social investments and the more sort of indirect impact through our engagement with companies. So I hope that's given you a quick taster, and I'll hand over to Shish now. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I will try and be quick as well. I'm just going to share my screen. So sorry, just give me a second. I can't move this. Okay, so are you able to see my screen? Yeah. So I'm Shish. I work with the Treebeard Trust, and we have about £25 million in net assets. So relatively small compared to some of the other foundations in the UK that are making impact investments. And we look at all of our assets as things that can generate impact. So not just our grant making, which we do each year. We try our best to invest our assets as ethically as possible. And I've just given a sense of our split in terms of investments in this pie chart. So we have a goal to invest up to 50% of our assets in what we call impact investments. So those are mostly direct investments in early stage mission-driven businesses or projects. And I think we have maybe 70 investments so far, or 70 different companies or projects we've supported, done over 100 investments if you include follow-on investments. And most of those are in ventures in terms of number. So those are pre-Series A businesses which have a very clear social or environmental objective, but they also can generate a decent financial return if they scale. And we also do loans, but you can see it's a smaller proportion of our allocation. And loans are tend to be concessionary investments to non-profits, but we also have given some working capital loans to the businesses we've invested in. And then we have property as well, which in terms of number is a very small allocation of our assets, but in terms of the value is a significant amount. The rest is invested a bit more conventionally. But like I said, the goal is to get to 50% in impact, and then the other 50% at least responsibly invested. This is just a selection of our the impact investments, so the mission-driven businesses and projects. And then I forgot 2 or 3 slides here. I'll be really quick. I just wanted to kind of pick out some of the benefits and challenges. So what's the benefit of a social investment program or an impact investment program? I think the main one really is that first point there. You know, aligning all of the assets that you own or have access to with your mission is going to have a far bigger impact than just focusing on your grant making alone. And so there's a really big opportunity from a mission and impact perspective to consider impact investment and even responsible investment. There are other benefits, but I won't go through each of them. Challenges, there are definitely lots. I would say probably the biggest one is that first one there, getting comfortable with different aspects of due diligence. So, at Treebid, for example, I work on our investments, and then my colleague Jess works on our grants. And there's a lot of shared skills and concepts that we look at. So, we both analyze teams, we look at mission, problem, solution. We look at the kind of structure and the kind of more general due diligence you might do in an organization. But then when it comes to our loans and our equity investments, there are other aspects like term sheets and valuations and pricing, which just takes time, I think, to get used to. And that either you kind of bring in an expert to help you do that, or you develop that expertise in-house yourself. But there's a bit of a process to go through there. But it's not impossible at all. And then I thought just kind of talking about the social impact investment group that we're a part of. There are so many benefits to it in the UK. I mean, I'm just listing them all out there. If I was to pick the biggest ones, I mean, the first 2 points I think are really important. So it is a really efficient way to see some of the bigger or more not bigger, but the impact or social investment opportunities that foundations are looking for. It's a really good conduit for those. So the opportunities that get presented in these groups come through the members and their networks. So it's a great way to just see that funnel of opportunities. And collaboration, I think, is a really big advantage. Just speaking to Mark and some of the other foundations in the SIG and the other members, you can share due diligence, you can learn about how others approach certain investments, you can kind of join together and ask specific questions to some of the investees that you share. So it's a really good way to collaborate. And obviously the final point as well is really important. So there's a lot of benefits to the charities and social enterprises that pitch or engage with the SIG, so they get an opportunity to raise funding and to develop relationships with funders, which is really important. And even if they don't end up pitching or getting funding, there's a lot of signposting and other support that's given. And the feedback generally has been really good. So overall, really, really, and it's inexpensive for what it is. It's for us, at least in the way that it's set up, it makes a lot of sense financially as well. And that's it. And very happy to be contacted and to speak about Treebid if anybody wants to.